You're not really saying that music can kill, are you?
Yes, I am.
Music can be a very powerful thing. Nothing galvanizes the emotions as quickly.
Hello, kiddies. We're going to have a real good time together. We're talking with Alan Williams, who is a musician, teacher, and we're going to split the interview into a couple sections or episodes because we have a whole musical conversation about things not to do with his work, but we want to focus on his stuff for the first round here.
Yes, which is super eclectic and comes from, so he's got a really interesting style of how he writes and what inspires
Mm-hmm.
him. Obviously, teaching music, you get a lot of and he teaches specifically rock
Right.
and pop, right? Yeah. So
And
it's
just
cool.
his take on music in general, and it kind of
Hmm.
tips over into the second part of the interview. But the other thing I wanted to
Yes.
go over, because I feel like we don't do a good job of this, is prepping or teasing folks who are going to be coming up. And we talked about this briefly. I've been emailing with Stephen Ray, not that one.
Yes.
He's a Irish writer, and he
Hmm.
has a great memoir that came out last year called Ozzy and Me,
Yes.
about his friendship and relationship with Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne, and actually the whole Osbourne family. And the introduction is written by Jack, and it was scheduled to come out after the Back to the Beginning show, not knowing what was going to happen. And the family said to him, like, no, I think you should put this out. This will be great. And we don't think you're capitalizing on the morbidity of our, father's passing. I am
Right.
loving this book.
Yeah, I've got to finally really dive into it
It
because I've been traveling, but
it
it's
is really, really good.
well, and you get that excited. I mean, you got super excited early on in it, which usually takes you a little, you withhold judgment till you're pretty far in usually.
I try, and I'm not the biggest of Ozzy fans, so I'm not coming at it from a knowing everything about everything here. But it's
Right.
just fascinating to hear from a fan's perspective how he wound up being this. You could unkindly describe him or use the phrase hanger on, which he wasn't. And it's interesting because he's
Right.
somebody who was around them for so long, for so many different tours and shows and such, but always remained a fan and always seemed to be able to be like, I can't believe this is happening. And so he talks about,
Which is so cool.
like, he never liked watching the shows from the stage. He always liked to go out into the pit. And being in the pit and
Hmm.
watching, I can't remember which, it was early 90s, where Geezer was playing with Ozzy pre Black Sabbath reunion, and him just being like, I can't believe, like, I get to see the two of them play. And at one point, Geezer's like, yeah, call me, we'll hang out. And he's just like, wait, what? Because he was 20 something. He was a lot younger than these guys. And just the relationship between them is similar in a way to John Scott. But John had a reason to hang out with Tom Petty
Hmm.
and to like be in his orbit. But I
Right.
think never lost the fandom of like, this is Tom Petty.
Right.
But
Which
still
is
was
so
able to,
cool. Like,
yeah. And I think makes it easier for him to tell stories to other fans because he knows what you're interested in and what you want to hear, but at the same point in that moment is able to not sit there and be like scraping up all of Ozzy's leftovers into a Ziploc bag to sell on the internet. It's just a fascinating story, and like I really want to talk to him just about this friendship. It's so interesting, and it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. So there's that one, and there's a bunch of books we're talking about soon that are really, really great. That I feel
yeah,
like,
we've got been really lucky. I mean, obviously this Friday we've got our Kiss Conversation, which I'm
We're
very
recording our
excited
Kiss
about.
conversation, yes.
Yes, that we don't want to give too much away, but that book is so good. And I've already had people try to steal it from me when they've seen it, super fans of the band.
Amateurs, yeah.
I know, little do they know,
Mm,
the eyes
yeah.
of the Catmen are
Catmen
watching.
are Catmen are on them. Yeah, no, it's been really nice. We've got a bunch of really cool things coming up, and so we're excited to share all of that with you. But in the meantime, you can enjoy this conversation with Alan. You are in Lowell, correct?
I'm in Lowell,
So,
Massachusetts.
home of Jack Kerouac and James McNeill Whistler. So pretty good company.
You can go to Whistler's mother's house.
I know, but she's from North Carolina, which I just found out. But anyway, congratulations on the record.
Thank you.
It's a real, in the best way possible, a mashup of a bunch of different styles of music and genres. Did you approach these songs thinking, I'm making a record?
Not initially. I think what happens with me is I then pray to never have another idea. Like I don't want to do this anymore. And then of course something happens, and that happened with this one too. So a nascent song started to signal maybe I was, and then I decided there was like one song where I knew, and my favorite drummer, I've been playing with him for many, many decades. Uh, so I knew I was probably going to have to make a hike up there to do a little tracking. And it just seemed like you don't just go for one song. Maybe I should write a few more songs and then go get the drums recorded. So I did that in January of last year and did 4 songs with Ben Whitman. That maybe was going to be an EP. I don't know. I'm an album person. I'm just of the vintage where 4 songs isn't really enough. And it seemed also, I guess, when you mentioned that the album's a little, I don't mind saying it's a little bit all over the place, is that I like things that are all over the place. And just having kind of one mode or flavor doesn't really fit me either. So there was a batch worked on, put out a track or two as sort of single moments. Oh, figured it would be an album in the end.
So you wrote these kind of the additional tracks after the 4 as a sort of like, well, these 4 are every kind of running all around the yard. I'm gonna just let these other songs go out with them.
Yeah, I think so. And maybe with a kind of a conscious sense that, all right, you've got this type of song and this type of song. It might be nice to have a counter to that, or maybe have a couple that are kind of like that. There are a couple of tracks on the record that are much more sort of piano driven, a little more ethereal. And at one point I thought, okay, well, that could be a little EP, just little ethereal piano bits. And I think some folks would say that's a good, better way to listen to them. Of
That's a
course,
great
in the
name
era
for an
of
EP,
yeah,
frankly.
but in the era of playlists, you could put up 2 hours worth of music and say, go ahead, make your 20-minute ethereal playlist out of whatever you want. So I kind of figured that would leave it up to the listener to throw out stuff they didn't want and to hold on to the stuff they do. But for me, I like to work in little stages, and I'll burn a CD because I'm old and I have a CD player. I'll burn a CD of sort of songs in progress. And I don't know. I just started listening to it going, I don't know. I think it's a little bit all over the place, but I feel like this is an album. It just felt in some ways like it was many fragments of a whole. So I just endeavored to keep that going and to hold on to a few ideas until they could be real songs and fit them amongst what was already complete. Yeah.
How many people call you up constantly asking to use your CD burner to
And
make a mix?
the hard part is the blank CDs. So
Mm.
the good news for me is I used to do it frequently and bought them, and then they got stored away in places I couldn't remember. And
Hmm.
I happened to need to be looking for a completely different type of thing and opened a box and went, oh man, a whole nother stack of CDRs. This is great. Maybe it's a sign that I should finish this album because I can keep burning mixes. So
Yes, the
yeah.
greatest.
Do you keep them all in like that little Case Logic, the zip up one, in the car still, or are you
Oh,
going on a streaming
In the
service?
car, I have a small one with that just for that week's worth of driving around.
it's not the
Mm.
big.
Not the big thing. And I'm not like a lot of my friends that would pull the artwork and throw out the plastic. No, no, I've got walls of CDs and I still buy them if anybody's willing to press one. I will do that. Which then sort of brings me to the weirdness of this is the first record I've ever put out that isn't in a physical format.
Ooh, how does that feel?
Well, as I say, I like physical media, but it's
Hmm.
just cost prohibitive. It just
I
is
know.
really hard to justify doing it. Um, and I think I kept doing it even when I knew in the back of my mind, you're just going to lose more money. Why are you doing it, right? But there is something, look, Ma, I made a real record. There's something
Yeah.
of that. And when it's just for streaming for individuals out there, I'm not even sure it's a real album, right?
Hmm.
So, if I had a hardcore fan base and they emailed me and said or dropped me a message or whatever saying you must print something, I would say, all right, let's figure out a way to do it. Um, and I know there's the whole vinyl world of
Hmm.
aficionados, and I don't want to besmirch them. Um,
It's
but
not
I
an
find, yeah,
inexpensive world.
it's
Right.
exactly, and it's just not a realm I can really travel in either. I think if I were on the road touring to 1,000 people at a show every couple of days, you could justify pressing vinyl because it would sell as merchandise.
Sure.
Um, but just even the cost of shipping one at this point is, it's just beyond the realm of normative. So, no, it's a digital only release.
It's interesting because I am very pro physical media, much to my wife's chagrin. As a filmmaker, somebody licensing stuff, you know how quickly something can be the contract can run out, and suddenly, what do you do? With this project, did you go into it knowing it was going to be digital only? Because there's almost something kind of wonderful about the ethereal nature of that.
That's a really good question. I think I did. I think I knew that I didn't really have it in me to go through the process again. And I think part of the problem for me is that for the prior releases, I not only did I press CDs, but I made Blu-rays because I also am
Dude,
really
come
into,
on.
This is amazing.
because I'm really into immersive audio. Back in the day, surround sound 5.1. Now it's Dolby Atmos. Um, And so the process of there's only a handful of people on earth that can author music specific Blu-rays. It's a slightly different coding than doing one for film. And that was both a really good and a bit of a costly thing. I connected with somebody in London who was doing like okay, I'm a nascent early 70s prog fan, sue me. Um, and there was, Steven Wilson was remixing all these classic albums and they were getting issued on Blu-ray. So I said,
Mhm.
who's doing the authoring of that? And I found a company name and somehow got a contact info, and the guy responded to me. And in a weird way, for me, it was like, oh my God, like a real guy got back to me. This is almost like I'm in Yes, just because, whatever. Um, and it turned out that we did it a couple of Blu-ray authoring by file exchange and just a whole lot of back and forth emails and phone calls but for the one next to the last one I did, I went to London and worked with him in his house, and he has somebody that does the coding, and it was a really creative experience. You realize it's not just typing in some file names. It really was like okay, how fast do you want the menu to go? We've got some ideas about how playlists could be generated and stored. And it was, I think for them, they saw me as the guy that's willing to be a guinea pig for whatever fancy coding ideas they had. So it was fun, and I loved the end result. But oh man, the bills at the end of the day,
But with these new songs, it's just so interesting. And so you had these four that were sort of calling to you, or at least one that started calling, and then the other three were like ringing in shortly thereafter.
and part of that is the process of writing for me. The song that triggered, not the avalanche, but whatever, started the process off, came about because I was experimenting with a new guitar tuning. And as I think a lot of people do, you put a new tuning together and a new idea came, and this song came really quickly, and it wasn't what I expected. And so, there's a song, that's cool. And then, so maybe I'm creatively exploring, but I'm also inherently lazy. So once I've tuned it to that tuning, it just stays there in the tuning.
Hmm.
The other part of that is if you do altered tunings and you're in a live situation, you're having to retune the guitar constantly. And so I made a little rule for myself. If I wrote one song in a new tuning, I must write at least one more, just so that live I could hit the tuning, do two songs before we have to go into the retune the guitar phase. And so this batch actually are all in the same altered tuning. So they for my they don't musically sound like the same piece, which is kind of what I'm hoping for. But mechanically, it's all in the same guitar tuning, which is why that batch became what it was.
What tuning is it?
It's an open E minor. So
Okay.
yeah, you change two strings to make a root fifth root, and then the upper three strings are the same as they normally would be in standard tuning. So it's not a massive retuning. And
Yeah.
I did it like figuring, oh, it'll be an open E minor. It'll be this sort of Gregorian chant, Appalachian ballad thing. And instead, it's this major key, upbeat little song. And I
Hmm.
did the chorus goes into minor, but it's not the flavor I thought it would be. And none of the songs ended up being Appalachian dark balladry. They all kind of there's like a samba and a I don't know. Anyway, yeah.
That's so interesting.
So, with them, since the dark, the Appalachians didn't make it there, was there anything that stuck out as the one that sort of took on a life that what came to the forefront as your favorite?
Ha. The one that came to my forefront as a favorite is one of the piano songs. It's not one that anybody else is really responding to. I don't care. And I think the reason that I am holding on to it is that it came completely spontaneously while I was just trying to set some gear up. Like, okay, I've got a little sample software thing and I need to see if this keyboard will trigger it. And am I getting signal? I don't know how to make this work. And as I'm doing that, my fingers are hitting chords. And I started, instead of looking at the computer fixing parameters, I started turning my head back to the keyboard. And this thing was happening and it was just very vibey. And I was not set up properly to record, but I just said, before I lose this, let me record it in the weird way that I've got going. So I did. And then I said, okay, I don't know what that is. It's time for dinner. I'm going to go home. And I got my coat on and got to the door and thought, it's still in my mind. Turn around, see if any words come. Just don't walk away. This is not the right time. And I sat back down and everything just came out in like 15 minutes. I don't know what inspired the lyric idea, but it's all there. It feels very organic. And I mean, I really love how it turned out. It created lots of problems for the recording because, oh no, there's all sorts of noise and issues. And but it's a song called The Darkness of Love. And I did a trick that I remember from an old Tim Buckley record where they had screwed up the noise reduction or something and decided to overdub the sound of ocean waves to mask the noise, right? But it was a song of his that made sense. Like, oh wow. So instead of being a patch. It was actually, I thought, elevated the track. So
Right.
mine has water sounds and rivers and some ocean waves, and there's a little bit about being in a boat. So why not? Yeah. So that's the song I'm most holding on to, and I think it's just for that personal thing. I think the song that's surprised me is the first track on the record, Somewhere There's a Train, because very late in the writing process, I was actually just driving somewhere and the little chorus melody came into my head. And I was like, la la la, I'm walking down a trail, going hiking, and la la la. And I said, I don't know. And the words were there too. Somewhere there's a train, and it ain't stopping for no one. I don't know where that came from. I don't know how to lead up to it, whatever, but that's the line. So I have a recording of me leaning into my phone to just sing that line. I don't know what this is. And got home a day or two later and put on a guitar, and the rest of the song just sort of formed. And I thought, I don't know, maybe I need to add this to the record cause. Um, so I went to ask my friend Greg Porter to play bass on a couple of tracks. He was moving. I think his house was basically in boxes at that point, but he said, "Yeah, yeah, come over. Maybe we can spend half an hour or something." And I got walked into his house. And he's like, "Alan, man, that song, I love that song." So part of me was thinking, I don't know if it's even real. I don't know. But for him, it was really a standout track, which then gave me a little more confidence in completing it and building it. And um, then I called in a former student of mine to come in and play some guitar solo stuff. And he played brilliantly. So the whole track just continued to get better and better with everybody else's input until I kind of realized maybe I don't always know what's strong or what's really valid or what people respond to. So in the end, that one is a surprise for me, but I really like it.
How often do your songs surprise you? Because both of these just sort of thrust themselves upon you, where you can't help but write this down.
I think more and more because I used to feel as a writer that I was way too intellectual about it. Wake up in the morning and say, today I should write a song on this theme, and it should have 6 lines, and they should rhyme in this scheme. And I just was very hyper structured about it. And I think people can work that way very effectively, but I always felt like I was trying too hard to be, I don't know what, to be clear and literate, etc. And I feel like it took me decades to get out of my own way and allow things to happen. And an example of that actually is a song on the record now called "Before My Eyes," which is one of those. Often, you're noodling around on a guitar and these phrases come, and that phrase came, but I didn't feel like it was necessarily. I don't know what that means. I don't know what to do with that. I'll change it, or I couldn't come up with a lyric for the verses. I had these weird little lines that would pop up, but so I spent a year, maybe more, trying to fit more intelligent lyrics into these verses. And you write a whole draft, and then you come back to it in a week and go, "Oh no, that's way too labored. That doesn't make, no, no, no. Maybe I can just fix 2 little words. No, it's not going to work. Throw it out, start again. Throw it out, start again." And finally, I went back and looked at the very first batch of half remembered incomplete phrases from the first moment of writing the song. And I thought, those lines sing well. They just feel natural. So keep them and just write a few little bits to get you there. So I ended up writing a song where the theme of the song is how to get out of your own way, basically. So there you go.
That's one way to do it, I guess.
That was the way that one happened anyway. It was more a meta comment on why can't I just let this song be the thing that it wants to be.
So
And
how often do you hear that song in your head again,
uh,
reminding you to get out of your own way, or do you stay out of your way now?
oh, I'd love to think I stay out of my way now. No, no, no. It's like a constant mantra. And I'm not, yeah, I think we all are kind of like that in varying degrees. And you can intellectually know to do it,
Hmm.
But as soon as you call attention to, I am not getting in my way. I am getting
Right.
out of my. You are, that's the conundrum. It's like meditation.
Right.
You're sitting there trying to meditate about. I'm meditating. I'm not going to have any thoughts. Let the thoughts not
Uh-huh.
enter. The thoughts not enter.
All
That
the
kind of thing.
thoughts.
Doesn't work.
Right.
Um, and there's a lot I think about creative making music that really is parallel to that sort of meditative process.
Hmm.
There is some flow state, as they say, that we have to allow ourselves to enter. Um, Part of the reason I use altered tunings on guitar, piano is my primary instrument, but guitar is what I tend to write on. And I use the altered tunings as a way of tricking myself so I don't land on the same old chords that I know, okay, this goes to this, goes to that. It allows me to discover things. And um, it's a trick to allow you to discover, but it works, right?
Yeah.
So I think I'll just have to continually keep tricking myself. And then the other thing is to just to honor the moment of creation. Like, okay, you may not understand why that phrase popped out, but hold on to it.
Hmm.
And there's a song I remember writing many albums back where the phrase popped into my head, just like a lot of these songs, and I couldn't make it work. The line was, I like my murderous friend. So, yeah, like I don't really necessarily want to write that song, um,
But could be
but
fascinating.
I couldn't let it go either, right?
Uh-huh.
So I needed to, but anyway, I was walking from my rehearsal space up to a yoga studio of all things, and I realized it's more of a phonetic thing. So instead of I like my murderous friend, I changed it to fire like a murderous friend. And then it gave me an opening, and the rest of the song came pretty quickly. But sometimes that your first impulse is nearly there, but not quite there. And you can put the more intellectual, self-conscious, let me revise that until I can actually get something that I can work with. So it's a mixture, maybe.
Well, it seems like your whole process has been, like you said, a little bit of getting out of your own way and trusting that that first impulse is the best. I mean, you talk about like Bowie using essentially, what did Burroughs call it? It wasn't automatic writing.
The cut-ups,
Yes,
Yeah.
the cut up
Yep.
style, or
or Eno's whatever, strategies, whatever. There's a,
and then yeah, and Dylan supposedly
oh,
does some version of that. And I mean, you go on. Jeff Tweedy's whole thing is like, I don't want to sing a line. I don't want to be embarrassed singing a line,
yeah.
which is just like the songs don't make any sense, but maybe they do.
Well, yeah, and I would argue his work is full of things that on the surface don't make an apparent sense, but somehow quickly seem to make sense to me anyway. Um, I think there's another challenge for folks that have been around for a while or folks that have deep, broad, eclectic tastes is that we are almost too familiar with all the other work that's come before us. And it's really hard to sit down and write a song that isn't, oh, this sounds like a Jeff Tweedy knockoff. Oh, this sounds like it could have been a Bowie cut up. This sounds like it's hard to escape. I mean, influence is too easy a word, but just escape that history, the literary musical history that you have,
Yeah.
that every listener I think accumulates, right? But when you're trying to create, it can get in your way, and then especially the hard part is when you've done the work and people want you to talk about the work, and they say, name your influences, or
Hmm.
or they tell you what they hear, and
Right.
it's both, it's gratifying. Thank you. That's a compliment to be thought of in the same breath, but at the same time, you're trying to carve out your own thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's an interesting problem to have. And the artists who have had long careers, you see them shifting up stuff, and I mean, similar to what you're talking about, finding new ways to trick themselves into writing in a different style, in a different
Right,
way.
right. But of course, I also work with students in my day job, and they're much younger, and they have far less accumulated knowledge base to draw from. And I find that they're incredibly creative as a result of they don't know that they're writing someone else's song. they're writing their song. And I might say, wow, you have no idea that that's almost exactly a sound off Squeeze's Argy Bargy, but okay, we're going to let it go. Um, because they don't ever need to know it that way. They're creatively expressing something that just coincidentally has a similar structure to my old ears. And somebody else will necessarily make that connection ever anyway. But I really envy that sort of younger beginner's mind. I'm building my own world of things that I dream up rather than my sense, Alan's sense, is that I feel like I'm often building my own world based of storefronts and facades I've stolen from other buildings and have just stitched together in some ugly Frankenstein. That's the hard part of getting around yourself as you create.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it'd be a lot easier if you're new in town and you're kind of don't know what you don't know, and it explains why some of these people out of the gates were doing something so unorthodox and different,
And then
but has now become
go ahead and be unorthodox again. You try it again.
right.
You be the next. It's really a hard thing to do. So, I mean, I think that's why we like artists that have longer careers who do seem to evolve over time. You know, I mean, Bowie is very consciously trying to change it up every album. Okay,
Right.
other people are maybe a little more just there's an art to what they do, but they're in flux. And then there are the people who just are multifaceted and do lots of different things and always do lots of different things. So, I don't know. It's a bit of a taste thing. I know we talk about the generation of students I work with, and they've all been raised with phones and internets, and they have microscopic attention spans and all of these sort of negative things that we attribute to them. But they also are incredibly facile. They pull together all sorts of things that, in my mind, I would never relate, and for them, they make logical sense out of it. I think that's a really interesting, cool thing. On the other hand, um, I've always liked albums that were a little bit all over the map. So, uh, my favorite albums are the White Album and Songs in the Key of Life and Sign of the Times, and just there's things that they're double albums, so they're big, and the artists play. I don't ever feel like they're necessarily doing. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're necessarily trying to play genre hopping. They just sort of can't help themselves, maybe. But as a listener, it just felt nice to me to hear worlds that were bigger than a little neighborhood block. And that's why I liked the larger epics. And then you have someone like when you have a Prince who is synthesizing rather than doing pastiches. The later period Prince for me became more about pastiche and became less interesting. But there's a moment where things are colliding in his music, and I found that just incredibly exciting. I think the Beatles too. There's the moments where, okay, McCartney's now doing just a straight out music hall number. I'm not interested in that. But I am interested in Martha, My Dear, which sort of is a music hall, but then it's got this whole other, it goes places it shouldn't go. And that's when I feel like they're at their most interesting as well. So, yeah, I think my stuff maybe doesn't change gears as rapidly as some of those things do, but I'd like to think at least like I move at different speeds.
Something moving in the evening sky, it caught my eye, and then it was gone. Something powerful revealed to me so vividly, as bright as the sun. Everything in motion, racing across the ocean, changing faster than the weather.
Floating on the Dreamline by Alan Williams is available March 6th wherever you download your music. For more information, you can find Alan online, where he is at alanwilliamsevidence.com.
I'm haunted by unsettled memories.
so far away. The joy we used to know, the fear of letting go and losing everything we treasure. Ashes from a fire that once burned with desire.